Today, I want to talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, I've been playing this game for the past week and a half, and I've still not completed the main story yet. I'm almost at the end of Act 2, but I've got to say that I am really enjoying this game quite a lot. And yeah, I think I'm about almost 40 hours in, which might sound quite slow because I know a lot of players might have completed this story by now, or maybe just almost at the end. But for me, I've kind of sort of taken my time and really taken my time kind of going around the different areas and just really taking it all in, soaking all the kind of atmosphere, the visuals of the game, the whole kind of story, and trying to interact with my characters as well that you interact with throughout the game, and also different NPCs as well that you see mainly from the beginning, but also just kind of doing little explorations here and there as well, a bit of side content just to kind of mix things up, but I know I'm probably going to be focusing on the main story to complete it, and then I'll kind of like dive into the side content once that's done. So yeah, this video, well, I intend to do like a little series. So this is kind of like a bit of a different format for me for a video, but I wanted to kind of like dissect and trying to show you guys like more sort of detailed and maybe a little bit thorough analysis of my thoughts and feelings as I go through this game, as I've basically recording since the beginning and hopefully all the way to the end. And yeah, as I said, I'm also at the end of Act 2, and this game has been set a high bar, and it's literally exceeded that higher bar, and maybe even more so since I literally pressed start and started the game. And this game is, I've got to say, I've been waiting for a while to just kind of get into this and to release a little video of mine and to share my thoughts and feelings with you guys, and hopefully maybe you share my feelings as well, or maybe you're against it. So yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so yeah, here we are back to the game right from the start, and as I'm sure most of you will kind of like recognize, especially if you play some of the other games like Nier Automata, Persona, Final Fantasy games obviously, and other RPGs, which may you might get some sort of nostalgic kind of like feelings that's kind of drawn from your time playing through this game. And this game is not just a game. Like, I've played like 40 hours, I said before, and I think literally right from the start it's like a work of art. It is literally like a work of art, and sort of very cinematic. So especially through here, we've got the intro scene, got the Eiffel Tower in the center. I really like how the kind of camera slowly zoomed in, and then again kind of like cut it into I think it's the Arc de Triomphe here. So you see on the left and right, and also in the center was the the 34. This is obviously related to the Expedition 34, which is the expedition before us. So if you don't know, this game is Expedition 33 is our current expedition that will be going on this kind of journey to try and stop there's a paintress, like a mysterious entity in the background, this kind of like large looming entity that basically she kills off anyone who is of a certain age. So currently it's 34, and it will be going down once one number every year. So 33 is next, obviously. So if you're 34 now or more, you're going to be eradicated. or gommaged, as they say in this game, which basically means to be erased or erased. My thoughts in the beginning, yeah, it was a nice intro. Nothing kind of blew me away, but I think I was kind of trying to look more into the details, and I like the character models. They look kind of cool. I like their costume designs, yeah, and you can tell it looks very, very French as well. If you didn't, recognize that from the Eiffel Tower and Arc de Triomphe landmarks, and they're kind of like these flowers floating about. And I guess the kind of the architecture. I think the time period or the setting, at least the kind of aesthetics, is kind of inspired by I think it's like 18th 19th century of a French era period, and I think it's called the Epoque French period era or something like that. But yeah, so this guy is called Gustave, and obviously a lot of people see a resemblance to Robert Pattinson, very much so. But I didn't know Charlie Cox was the voice for this character, which is a big plus for me, and maybe that's probably why I seem very likable. I like Charlie Cox in Daredevil, and that show is pretty awesome. But also his performance is really good as well, and it definitely carries on here. So I'm really pleased about that. Gustav looks like a cool guy. He's in his 30s. He's definitely 33. Oh no, actually he's 32. My mistake. So it's going to be 33 next year. So obviously, he's trying to, stop any more deaths happening with his team. And obviously you saw the girl earlier, Maëlle, which is she's a lot younger. I think she's probably 16 or 17. But also she's got a very nice sort of voice as well. Like the voice actor is Jennifer English, which I didn't know who that was, because I've never played Baldur's Gate 3 or other games that she's been in. But it really suits her actually. She's got this very sort of delicate and soft voice. But Maëlle's character, she's kind of got a bit more of a sort of slight sassy but kind of chirpy kind of like personality, which is a nice sort of contrast. And I was just looking here actually, these posters as well. I'm slowly looking through La Expedition, and then Contest de Ceylon. I see Ceylon. My French is a little bit very, very rusty. I think something to do with the Tales of the Mermaid, which is what it translates to. So this intro is cool. I like the kind of the rooftop kind of setting. It's nice and calm, and nothing too crazy, but so far I like the kind of interaction between and the dialogue between Maëlle and Gustave. They seem like two likable characters. They're kind of like, they're not siblings, they're not by blood. They're like I guess you could say they're not adopted, but you know what I mean. I guess voluntary siblings, probably the middle word. But anyway, I'm kind of looking so far I like the kind of visuals. They're nice. They kind of got this painterly style going on. Got this weird kind of like bits of like abstract blobs of come out up here. These weird structures going on, like big pieces of glue or gloop sticking on something. What is going on? And then you got all these debris flying in the air. These massive structures in the air like this. What is this? And I'm noticing some sort of steampunky kind of elements around artifacts, so that's cool. Okay, so we've got here grappling section, which obviously is, well, for me it's Persona inspired, P5 that is. So it's nice to have that. So this is powered by Unreal Engine 5. It looks nice. I think it's probably the right call. Like the lighting is very nice. Gives a nice sort of soft kind of a softness to the whole world. Bit of a glow going around as well. And I think the setting I kind of changed later on anyway, so I didn't really have it to my optimal setting that I wanted to do. and my old runs damn fast, I gotta say. So at the start, I mean, I'd say the lip syncing could be more polished, but that's really, really nitpicky and minor, so it didn't really affect me, you know, I guess further in. So really, it's about the dialogue and the writing. I mean, it's okay at the start. I don't think it was super strong, but it was a very solid start. Over time, yeah, it's very consistent, which is what I got to say is commendable for this new developer, this French developer. Yeah, as you probably seen other videos or you've researched that about 30, I don't know if it's 30 people or 30 odd people have kind of developed this game, but it's pretty astonishing, I've got to say. And obviously they've taken a lot of cues and inspiration from other games, and especially RPGs that I enjoy, and it just works really well. And it's very, you can do that quite easily, I'm sure. Like, you just take one thing and you think, oh, you're going to slap that on, and that's it, that's my game, you call it a day. But I've noticed, like, throughout my 40 hours, the whole time, I see a lot of love, like a lot of love and care, passion that's gone into this whole project, this whole experience. From the kind of the sounds, amazing. Like, I'll probably just, I'll show a little bit of a sound, the music right now. But yeah, so the music, it's got this called classical and inspiring. It's not too in your face, but it's definitely very gets you kind of pumping, right? So it's nice, very nice sort of battle music for the first battle music it is. And there's tons of different battle music, or other themes, or overworld music, level music, etc. And you don't just have one or two music. There's kind of like slight variants or changes throughout the different areas that you go to, which is a very nice touch. So you can tell that they put a lot of attention to those. So yeah, I mean, I could talk about the music all day, but I want to just go through the game and my playthrough, and I'll probably sort of highlight the ones that I really liked, and I could just kind of sit there and just kind of like soak it all in. But anyway, here's the battle. Of course, the battle is, you can see, there's a lot of Persona-esque style going on with the the spinning jumps and flashes and dodges, and the weaponry, the way they kind of swing to and fro, but just the way, also the combat system as well is very Persona inspired as well. But of course, what you have here is kind of this timing system where you can time your attacks and defense, where like Mario RPG, which if you play that game, where you can time attacks to do more stronger, maybe more powerful attacks, or maybe for more extra effects like burn or other things. Or when you're defending as well, in this game you can't defend as like same as like Final Fantasy games where you just defend and then that's your turn over. In this game you have to either parry or dodge. Like, it's like a Souls RPG-esque game, but with turn-based elements in it. So you see before, it's turn system is like a Final Fantasy X, where you see the characters who goes next and which enemy goes next as well. But yeah, just the whole parry and dodging system. At first I thought I might struggle with it, but no, I actually really enjoy it over time. Yeah, at first, especially if you're new to sort of parrying and dodging, or you're not really into Q2E, quick time events, you're not really familiar with quick time events, kind of action prompts, you're probably going to struggle a lot more at first. But then just dial down the difficulty to story mode. So I don't know how easy that is. I'm currently on normal playthrough, normal difficulty. But I think for me, what's helped is that I played Elden Ring. That's my first and only Souls game that I've played so far. And I played that about a couple of years back. And that was a very intense game and frustrating at first. Over time, I guess for me, I've played a lot of games, so I've got a lot of patience. And I like to try, if I really like the world and the kind of setting, I'm going to want to try and, learn and adapt to the game mechanics to try to, progress and enjoy the game. And I really loved Elden Ring, actually. I really loved Elden Ring. Yeah, fascinating game that was, experience. And yeah, I'd say that was like a very, very highly rated game. Probably like a 9.5 out of 10, if I'm going to say, give it like a score. When I give it like a game, like a 10 out of 10, masterpiece, it's not without any flaws, but it just means that that's a game where I can kind of play, replay many times, and, I want to enjoy, because I really enjoyed the whole gameplay, of course, and it flows very nicely. I don't get bored, hardly get disengaged, and I just want to replay again, and maybe I'll see more things that I missed out on the first time round, or it's something that that's really kind of like resonated with me emotionally, so which is quite hard for a game to do that. This game, in the intro, I know it's quite emotional. I know from a lot of people they I guess, well, I don't want to spoil it yet. We'll get to that parts later on, but I guess I kind of like saw it coming anyway. So I wasn't strongly emotionally invested yet, but over time, it does definitely come around. But again, nice strong contender. So here we are. We've got Gustav meeting Sophie. So this is kind of like the two who really like each other. I guess they had a thing once. But obviously, well, you can probably tell that Sophie is going to be, well, she's 33 currently, I believe. So yeah, that means when it counts down to 33, she's gonna get gamaged, and obviously, they both know that they can't be together, because otherwise it's gonna be very, heartbreaking and painful. So, but they know that Gustav has to be on this expedition to try and stop this cycle of death. So this kind of these cinematic sections is obviously a lot better. So I don't use the highest poly models here. I think they have another. You can tell anyway by the lighting and the whole atmosphere, that, and also the hair as well. But otherwise, you've got a lot of really good facial animation. You see Gustav's sort of smile, little grins, and also the eyes as well, which really good actually. Considering it's not the full high res render, it's just the in-game engine. But there's very, very few negatives in this game so far, and they're very minor, but of course it can be polished, and I'm not saying that it's without flaws during my 40 hours of this game. Okay, so we're in this kind of like courtyard area. Obviously we can switch out characters when we like. This just shows you that you can do this throughout the game. It doesn't change the story as far as I'm aware, but it can change, I think, with certain NPCs, the way they respond to your character, depending who you are. That's what I've heard. Okay, so it's cool. I like the kind of like, these slightly diagonal kind of cuts when you're interacting with objects and stuff. It's got some elements of Final Fantasy in it. I wouldn't say strongly yet from me, apart from the battle system in some sense. But so far, really cool. Okay, so in this game you can jump, of course, and you can find things like, chroma, which is basically like currency that you'll use to buy certain items or costumes as well. So in this game you'll find it's quite a lot of costumes, which I didn't realise, and which is kind of cool. and they're kind of scattered throughout the game from enemies, or from picking up from certain places. Yeah, costumes, accessories, all that. I think it's really cool actually they did that, because nice little flavour and I guess customized play session for each person. So here we've got the nice little statue of a interesting creature. This creature is called Eskia. It's maybe like a legendary creature, so I wonder if we'll see that later on. Yeah, for me so far, and just kind of doing some more exploring and just trying to get more of the world, the lore. It's the kind of furniture that is left here by other people for others to use, which is a nice little detail there. Kind of adds a bit more to the tension, or of the inevitable things to come, and kind of makes it very sort of sad in some way. But yeah, so basically you've got a lot of people here gathering, where they're kind of rather than celebrating death, it's more like celebrating the lives of these people who have had a short life. And yeah, it's kind of sad in that sense, but it's nice. They're trying to be more kind of energetic and show a bit more spirit, or being high spirits. Okay, so we find these two kids with some interesting looking masks with brush heads, and they talk about these gestuals, which are like these kind of unknown species, I guess you call them. Unknown species, unknown set of people that no one's ever seen before. So interesting. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see these later on. Okay, so now we come to this piano. I saw this earlier actually. It's piano on the rooftop, and I thought, I wonder if we're going to be able to play piano. There must be a section, but if not, then no worries. But yeah, fortunately we are able to interact with a piano. Cool, but even though it's like one tap, and basically if you keep tapping it, it's going to play like a whole piece of music, which is cool. So it's not like Final Fantasy Rebirth level complexity. What I didn't know actually with the pianos is that if you have different characters playing with the piano, they're going to play a different tune, which is something worth checking out if you didn't know that. This opening space, you get to have more practice with this like a balloon. So just kind of me just trying to get my head around the game mechanics, and also the timing of attacks. And takes me probably about an hour or so into it, like to probably get into the kind of flow, but it still gets a lot more harder as you go on anyway. But yeah, you got the you've got different skill sets, you've got the items and basic attacks, you've got aim as well. We can do like a free aiming, which uses up these like blue pips here down here. So that's why you got to be. It's kind of like a management game as well. You're trying to manage your AP. They call it AP here, kind of like your mana points in RPG sense. But you got limited APs up to 9. So one action costs 1 AP, or basic action that is. But skills might have obviously more, up to 9 pips. So normally the more pips you use, the more powerful it is. And over time you get to equip pictos or luminers, which are like accessories that help to give you more AP when you do certain moves, actions, or something happens to you, like you die, like character dies in battle, and then you get more AP. You get revived, for example, or you give AP to our characters. There's a whole system of the picto system, which is pretty complex. Like you can really sort of stack up and really min-max your time if you want to get into that. And for me, yeah, I kind of like do the best I can in a situation where I just give what I can to a character as I go on, and to find more powerful pictos, which you will pick up a lot of pictos. And but yeah, you might get overwhelmed, but that's fine. Just try and stick to ones that you feel like you might need at first, and then try to understand what they're trying to do, and then try and use different ones to experiment. This game's about experimentation, which is pretty cool, and I like that in the RPG, of course. If it's very bare bones, like attack, and using skill with nothing else, and it seems a bit, it's okay, but it's a bit bland for me. I want something a bit more of a complexity to it, but just not too much where, I have to literally read like 20 pages of a manual, for example, just to understand what a skill or mechanic does. That's not really the best game design, but I think this game does very well with. It could be better in some sense. It's a bit clunky with the wording sometimes, where it gives you very basic information, and then it's up to you to try to figure out how to utilize things or to work out how to use certain systems. But once you kind of get into the flow of things and you understand more, you play more of the game, I think it's actually very, very enjoyable, and I think that's it's a better way for you to learn, actually. So I think this game has a nice balance to that. Okay, so passing through here, we see a young woman playing a guitar on a bench, and this woman's called Lune. Little spoiler alert: she's going to be one of your allies later on, which I didn't realise. So I just thought, she's just a random NPC playing, just a random musician playing music, and I didn't really, put the dots together. Should have realised looking at her, her outfit looks like it's an expedition outfit. But I thought, that's a cool NPC. Yeah. Okay, later on, just a bit more further, we get up to this gentleman called Nicholas, who is basically like a artist. He's a painter, and he wants to get some inspiration. So he asks us both to dance together, or more like a metaphor for, or rather, the battling is a metaphor for dancing, just to gradually get you used to the mechanics of the game. So it's cool. It's a cool concept. And then you see the final piece here of us two dancing. So I thought that's a nice touch. So yeah, the more I kind of get into talking to these NPCs, and just seeing these kind of little things going on, I'm getting more kind of immersed in the world. Okay, just cutting to the next section where we have me walking down this path, getting closer to the beach. And we get more, dialogue and a bit more history between Sophie and Gustav. And then we get to this section here where we are see the Arc de Triomphe a bit more closer. And then, I forgot to mention that, these bins. I thought they're just normal bins, and I thought, okay, let me just interact with them once. I see a few beforehand, and my brain, I play a lot of RPGs, JRPGs that is, and normally you should interact with things more than once, 2 or 3 times sometimes, and something might happen. Something happens with the bins, but I don't know what it is yet. I know about it, but I don't know what it is, so I'll find out in my second playthrough. Okay, we come to this section here where we see some nice little dancers and fireworks and lights going on, and I just turn this corner and I see this really creepy looking mime, which kind of shocked me just for a moment, and I thought, what is this? I thought, okay, this looks like a really dangerous guy. Let me just talk to him. And I thought, yep, it's going to be a double battle here. And here we are, the battle here. Okay, so obviously, I'm sure a lot of people have died the first time here. If they haven't, then they must be very lucky, or they knew exactly what to do. For me, I just thought, okay, let me just try and attacking. I thought, how am I going to, break through? He's got a wall here. I didn't realise about the wall thing. I guess I didn't really read my skills properly as well until, the second time round. And then, start to use my skills properly, and then how to break the shield here. So you see, notice this yellow meter here. So what you got to do is use certain skills that can break the enemy. So like overcharge here, so that can break enemies. So once you fill up that yellow meter, then you can stun enemies. This is where you then unleash, your offensive moves on enemies once they're down. something for, for me to learn gradually over time, and but also it pays dividends, when you start to read, think carefully. But for me, it's kind of like, I kind of learn from making errors and mistakes, and then I'm trying to understand what's happened. Why did I do that wrong? Where could I find a solution to this problem? And then just try one thing after another, and then read carefully certain things, and then it kind of clicks. So that's kind of where I am. Okay, so I defeat this mime, and this mime is really very creepy still, and just looking at me. I don't know what you're doing, bro. So it's like, yep, I'm gonna walk away. More NPC, talk about, Sophie and Gustav, and kind of, even though you kind of see from Gustav's face that you can see he's kind of got this, even though he's trying to look happy, he's trying to look, he's trying to hide his feelings, but it's the way he says things as well, you can tell. So it's just, obviously that's really down to the voice actor, which obviously Charlie Cox does a really good job here. Really great performance. So for me, what really makes a game kind of emotional, where I can feel it, I'm more strongly connected to the kind of the world, the story, and the characters, is obviously the music. For one, is a huge factor. If music is a bit, very bland, generic, and just not very inspiring when it needs to be, then I will probably just disengage, or I'll just try to get through it, a section and then get through the next part. But just that, for me, makes a bit more, that kind of like drops points for me. Like if the music is like that generally throughout the game. This game so far, introduction has been very good, like music wise, dialogue, and just the characters as well, very likable. Okay, so we've got this cinematic part here where, this is the bit where things start to, come about. And then we see in the distance the giant pillar with 34 in it, and the time is coming. Now I really like this bit where the colours sort of fade out, gives it a very more cinematic, kind of like very dark sort of presence, and very, very Elden Ring like, with this kind of eclipse, I want to say. So cool. And the paintress here is this giant entity. She just kind of waves her hand to remove the number, and effectively paints on the number going down, 33. And then this is where you know what's going to happen. And obviously the whole kind of scene here, music, it's very somber, very in the minor chords, and just very sad, depressing. Obviously got the kind of red colours, tones going on, and then kind of focus on these two, and then more people around who gamage. So kind of looking back on the second time round whilst doing this recording, it's actually, I find it a bit more emotional actually, which is strange, because I kind of know now, I kind of understand more of the story, and if we just kind of playing the game, I kind of know a bit more what's going to happen, and just kind of hearing stories from other characters about their time with, say, like with Sophie, with Mael, and other people. Strange how it's definitely more emotional now than I think my first time around, which is just interesting. But just the whole sequence here is just this kind of like very artistic. I love the way the petals just kind of fly. Obviously it's sad. Sophie disappears into this kind of haze with these petals flying about. Just give it more. Something about it, like a more RPG, like fantasy look, and music as well. And then I love the way you see a bit of some tears coming down Gustav's face, and just the way the mocap here is just amazing. Just the animation here, you see kind of the raw, the despair, and I mean, obviously he knew this was coming, but it still doesn't really help to mask the pain. But very, very dynamic introduction, I've got to say. Okay, now we turn to evening time. When everyone's sort of calmed down a bit, and is aware the expeditioners want to not celebrate, but more like, just drink to lost friends and family and all that, and just trying to honour them. So see, it's nice little camaraderie and friendship going on there with the other expeditioners. So it's a nice touch. So I got here the menu system here. I'm just gonna browse through it. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing like in detail, but yeah, I mean, at first it was okay, and I guess I didn't expect it to be super overwhelming. It can be, especially when you start to gather more pictos, which is where these empty slots come in, and you equip pictos to help to buff your stats or give you more skills or more passive, ways to defeat enemies, or give you more advantages. Yeah, so pictos, once you battle through 4 battles, then you master pictos. Like Final Fantasy 9, where you gain AP to level up an accessory or like armor or weapon, and then you master that weapon, and then you can use that without equipping the necessary equipment. So it's just kind of similar to that basically. But also the great thing about pictos is that they can be shared between, once you've mastered one picto, you then have the Lumina, which is basically that's the passive kind of the skill you use that you can share between your characters. And obviously they can use, each character can use the same Lumina, just as long as they have the necessary Lumina to use up, which I didn't realize until a bit later on. So you got Luminas here. This bit is where I'm just kind of like, browsing the menus and noticing there's a wardrobe section where you can obviously equip your different outfits and to your liking. So that's cool. You also pick up a lot of weapons as well, which, I did equip, different weapons now and then, but eventually I kind of got like at least double or triple the amount of weapons that I haven't really dived into, especially in my 40 hours of game time so far. So I kind of used maybe between 4 to 5 different weapons between each character, maybe even less than that, because I feel like the ones that I'm using they're pretty much effective enough. So I feel like the weapons they're kind of cool. It's nice to see a lot of customization, but I don't feel like you need so many weapons. But I guess it's it's just more, it's a nitpick, but it's it doesn't obviously break the game in any sense. It's just more weapons for I guess for the power fantasy in us all, where want to use the coolest looking weapon and coolest looking outfits, etc. So I guess that's kind of that sort of sentiment. Okay, so we find out we talk to more NPCs, and then we talk to this lady called CL. She seems like a nice lady, and she's going to be one of our teammates later on. So spoiler alert. So again, I've got to praise this. The writing and just the way the actors kind of like just talk, it just seems very natural, where it's not like one character talks one by one, turn by turn. They kind of like intertwine, and it just feels natural and very like realistic in that sense. So this is why throughout the 40 hours it still keeps on that same level of standard, which is pretty commendable. Also, kind of looking back on this again, so I noticed a lot later on in the game when you're in the overworld. You can see it now in the battle, where if you notice the sky, you have these kind of floating rocks in the air. They're kind of pointing towards the pillar where the paintress is. So everything kind of like focuses on that point. So I kind of like that detail, which I didn't notice it until later on. And I feel like it's a bit more obvious as you play on, especially when you go in the overworld. You see, certain structures kind of like really focusing on that pillar, as to say, for you to keep moving forward. This is our goal. Okay, so we cut to this part where this is where the expeditioners, they get ready to prepare for their lives to set sail towards the monolith and the continent. yeah, I really like the colours they use. Just the kind of warm colours, the bronze of the ship, and the different artifacts and surroundings. I think everything just works really well. It has this very kind of artistic, painterly look. So up at this section here, it's got this nice, very moody, atmospheric, and very kind of eerie looking night sky with the eclipse here. And we set foot, and then very dark, moody. So I kind of see this coming, but I didn't feel like it would be this much sort of destruction from this mysterious man, old man, which is a very strange. So who is this old strange man, and how is he still alive? So you obviously tell from this game it becomes very more mature, and it's definitely not safe or family friendly. It's definitely very matureness, and it's some violence to it as well. So it's not like a horror game, but there's definitely elements of that in here, which I really like in the game. So it's a nice way to kind of raise the stakes and really get me more immersed and engaged with the story. Again, you kind of got this kind of Souls-like Elden Ring creature design, and then got like these kind of almost Final Fantasy 16-esque kind of, I guess, the look, the medievalness with the costumes. Kind of reminds me of that in a way, where you got Clive. So I initially thought that Ben's star would be Gustav, actually, and this is what I saw from the trailers, which I didn't realise until later on. So now in finally Act 1 with Gustav. So Gustav kind of wakes up, and he's obviously lost a lot of his friends, allies, and he's obviously feeling a lot of kind of emotions, or he doesn't know what to feel actually. He's just really very, very much despaired. So in this kind of woodlands area, very nice looking water, very Unreal Engine. You can tell a lot of assets look Unreal Engine like, but what I like is the art direction that Sandfall have really done well with the assets and they use. That's the main difference. Like, yeah, you can use Unreal Engine 3 to make things look pretty, but it can look very generic and very obviously Unreal Engine, but then it just looks boring and plain. But the way Sandfall has kind of created this world and the areas our characters are, walking around, and everything looks very fantastical, like, or fantasy like. Also very colourful and vibrant as well, which this is what I want to see in RPGs or any games. Just have this kind of like very ethereal looking, dreamlike kind of settings. So kind of going back to the lighting as before, it kind of gives this nice sort of softness to the whole world, which I think definitely lends a nice kind of abstractness to it, to the visuals, which is what I really... or maybe I didn't realise I was looking for until this game came along, and it definitely holds up throughout my whole time. And yeah, this is what I want to kind of like, or see like a Final Fantasy game, or even Persona games or Atlas games do, just kind of give me that fantasy world that I'm looking for with a charm. Like, it doesn't have to be, I don't want like a super hyper realistic looking game. I want to kind of live in this world, even though it's kind of bleak, but it looks beautiful as well at the same time. But also this game, it does a lot of particle effects, with the kind of glowing dust, or, bits of leaves in the air or petals. And you notice these particles, they change depending on which area you're currently in, which is a nice touch. So it gives it more of a, immersive kind of environment. So we have our first fight here with these are called Nevrons, which I've got to mention before, but they're called Nevrons, which someone mentioned. And the enemy, it's it's kind of like a standard affair enemy. It's alright, nothing too crazy design wise, but it's a solid enemy. I'm still here just trying to learn a bit more of the timings and trying to learn the enemy patterns, so obviously very important to, especially in like a Dark Souls game, Elden Ring game, or other games of that sort of genre, to look at the enemies, how they move. But sometimes it's good to pay attention to their sound as well. It's like sound cues when they're about to attack. So it's good to pick up on these, and then obviously to counteract against. Once again, the art direction in this game, just having all these strange kind of statues, the bronze and the weird kind of texture of the rocks, just really adds more to this kind of mysteriousness of this world. Just kind of adds more questions. I think that's what really kind of like, helps keep me engaged as well. So that there's a lot of interesting things going on, but as a player, you don't know what the heck is going on, and you just kind of want to find out more. And also, you just want to explore the world a bit more as well. Once again, the visuals are very nice, just like the lighting as well. Unreal Engine really enhances the kind of experience, and it just feels like a very fun and joyful times to see all these different environments as well. Just adding all these kind of little rocks as well above just adds a bit more depth. Foggy, hazy colours coming through again just adds more to kind of the fantasy element. So it's astonishing where this French game company has this RPG, which is very JRPG inspired, and this is why I tend to play a lot of JRPGs rather than like Western RPGs. Like I played like Skyrim. I've never finished it. Only Western RPG I've played and completed is Mass Effect 2, which was a really good game actually, to be fair. But apart from that, I generally like JRPGs in general because I guess it's just more, you could say it's more dramatic in that sense, but it's kind of what I want in a game. I want it to be a bit more dramatic, not like crazily, just goofy, but I do like kind of comedic moments and charming, like a charming experience as well. But something that gives a bit more like, intensity that you don't see in RPGs. Something that's a bit more left field and just out there, which is what this game conveys, especially as the sort of time goes on, as I progress. So again, once again, the lighting here is really, really nice. It's the way everything is kind of lit, but just the art direction as well, where it kind of focuses your attention to, what's happening around you, and you see the horror and what's happening to all these expeditioners adds more to weight of the story and your ultimate goal, like this this ticking time bomb that you feel like the urge to keep going and find out more and how to stop this ultimate kind of like Grim Reaper, I guess, in a sense. As you kind of walk in through this section here, we see this kind of nice red fog, which really goes well with the kind of the teal coloured as well. It's a nice blend that complements each other. It's why I really like the colours in this game. It really blends nicely. Even to just like, this kind of horror-like atmosphere, ambience, where I really like this kind of red light as well. It really, even though it's like obviously not natural lighting, but it just really looks really cool, and it just adds more to gives more tension to the scene, doesn't it? And it really enhances the ambience. This part kind of reminds me of Persona 3, especially the gun. I think it's a massive giveaway, but this kind of moment where the character, the protagonist, just feels like ending his life because there's no way out. And then we find out Lune appears next to him, which I thought was like some sort of spirit. I thought, oh, how did she appear like that? That's really strange. We find out later on she's like a mage, so she can kind of, I guess, disappear when she likes. But so I thought in this section that Gustav was going a bit crazy, and he was just like imagining that Lune was there, and maybe he's just following this spirit through the game just to kind of push him on. The visuals in this game are, again, I have to keep repeating it, but the visuals are just very nice, especially the cinematic sequences. Just really looks really cool, and I guess the film grain as well, film grain filter, just adds a bit more this kind of filmic quality to it. And here we are, kind of our, I guess, first more serious enemy or mini boss, but not really a mini boss because it's actually fairly easy to beat. And this time we've got 2 characters now, so we can find out a bit more about Lune and her abilities. So the tutorial, gives a nice kind of like basic description how each character will work, what their game style is like. So Lune can use these stains to help give extra effects or add more power to her skills. So again, you get these 4 bits here. So I won't run too deep into the combat, but just kind of general sense of how she plays or how any other character plays. But Lune is quite fun actually. I've used her, I've used her, the whole time in my squad, and she's like a nice kind of like setup for kind of buff, and I use a lot of her kind of fire abilities to kind of like I use burn skills to burn the enemies and just kind of like keep increasing burn. So every turn the enemy received burn damage, which is pretty effective. So as far as I'm aware, there's no poison damage in this game. I don't believe, or I haven't come across it yet. I mean, I'm 40 hours in anyway, but either way, burn is like, I guess, the poison of this world. Okay, so we got through that part, and then we get new pictos. As I said before, you pick up pictos from enemies as well, or picking up from the floor or other areas. Yeah, when I first got Lune, I noticed obviously. Well, I'm sure most of you will notice that she has no shoes. She just literally flies through the air with her bare feet showing. So I don't know if it's for for the fans, for those who like feet. But whatever, it's a game. So far I haven't discovered why she doesn't like wearing shoes. Whether there's a reason why, or it's just because just because it's a game, and why not? I guess technically she's like a mage, so she doesn't really use shoes. Well, maybe she's just used to not wearing shoes. So you get these flags where you can save and rest, upgrade your attributes to increase your stats. And I didn't know about this, but later on from now, but I found out this later on that any weapon that you get these kind of grades. So like C or B to A, and then basically you want to try and focus, what I believe, try to focus on the ones that has the grade, like obviously C at the moment, but if you might get like 2 different stats that have like 2 different grades. So if agility had B and vitality had C, maybe you want to try to focus more on agility to get more of a stat boost until you're kind of maxed out. So luck, you get C, and then D for vitality. So try to focus on luck maybe, but it's up to you. Like, it depends if you want to kind of maximize early on. Oh yeah, so just like in Persona, it's good to try to get a first strike on an enemy. So I'm using the Xbox controller, just a standard old 360 controller, but basically just use RB or R1 if you're using PS controller, and just do a quick, this kind of punch attack before you do the enemy encounter, just to get the first strike in. Otherwise, the enemy will, get advantage. So once you get into the flow of the game, you kind of realise, and you should recognise enemy patterns and hopefully be able to parry or dodge at the precise times. That's when it gets more engaging with combat, which is what I really like. The more I get into it, and yeah, it can be very intense and maybe can be frustrating, but you get into the rhythm of the game. So in a sense, this game with combat, it's also like a rhythm game where maybe it's like a music game. You play to the beat. Yeah, so you might notice throughout this video that you'll see, in this environment with meadows, that there's a lot of near automata, especially in the music. It's a blend of that near automata, which kind of weird but dreamlike environments, the weird houses, sort of like this post-apocalyptic kind of environment. Yeah, definitely get near vibes, but doesn't look quite as bleak or quite as depressing. When near looked really, like, you didn't have all these vibrant colours. There's a lot of greys and you know, very muddy colours, you could say. Whereas this game, you've got a lot of like your blues, greens, pinks, reds, oranges. It just kind of like adds more to fantasy. Playing this game, you get a lot of like this kind of verticality with the environments, which is quite nice. So it definitely gives you this sense of like a much bigger landscape and world. Some people said that the levels have been a bit not as good. I don't really agree. I think, yeah, it's not amazing, but I think they work quite well. And you might notice there's no like mini map as well, which is what I forgot to mention. There's no mini map, which is not a big problem. I thought it would be, but actually, yeah, the maps, you may get a bit lost every now and then, but you know, as long as you work out, just like find little landmarks, what you seen before, to then track back, and then just kind of recognize that unless your orienteering skills are really bad, that you don't know where you're going. So in that sense, yeah, you might find it really frustrating, but for me it's been fine, and I quite like the kind of this discovery of the unknown, and it's for you to kind of like map out in your brain of your environment. So I don't feel like you get that lost easily so far. I've done 40 hours of it, and sometimes the map can kind of like loop back as well. So if you go one way where it forks, so if it forks like left or right or center, and you go left, then maybe that path will then loop back around to the central path, or the right path, etc. And then that path is done. It's done. So go to the last path, that sort of thing. But again, I think classic RPGs have been kind of like this, where you might not have a map anyway. So I think it's quite nice for the devs to have this kind of limit. So I don't think it's a bad design, but I guess for those who do struggle with like directions and stuff, yeah, maybe there should be like a accessibility option for those. But normally the right path, the golden path, is the ones where you see are lit up by lamps or lights or torches, etc. It's not always the case, but it's a general rule. Here we've got this very weird looking sculpture which is kind of split in half. It's kind of humanoid looking creature. So I'm wondering if this is like a massive Nevron, or just, I don't know what it's doing there. It's really strange but beautiful at the same time. Come back to waterfalls, so you get this green waterfall rather than this white waterfall. So just adding a little touch of that just gives a bit more variation, but actually it adds more to the depth. So I think it's quite nice the devs did that. This is what gives a bit more, I guess, makes the world seem more alive than just kind of generic colours. So I think a lot of the more well-known developers like Square Enix or Atlas or etc. could definitely take a lot of inspiration from this game, just to add a bit more colour where you might not expect a like an object or a environment to be. Just change it up slightly. That's kind of what I want to see in games. So these guys, they're like flying enemies, so the only way to defeat them is by shooting them. It's okay shooting, but it gets a little bit repetitive actually over time. You don't get too many flying enemies, but when you do at one section later on, yeah, it could be definitely better. I feel like there should be, but so far I've not come across any skills that have like a multi-hit shooting. It's just literally a singular shot using the free aim. Luckily, flying enemies, they're not too resilient. Like, they don't have a lot of HP, so you can kind of like kill them quite quickly. But yeah, hopefully in the next game, or maybe they can add on as a patch to this game to have like more skills. If I haven't seen a skill or a pizzo yet that does that maybe I have to wait till later on. But yeah, it just gets a bit. I feel like it kind of slows down the pace of combat a bit when shooting is involved. Otherwise it's fine. The music is fantastic, the battle music. Again, I can't praise the soundtrack. It's fantastic throughout. Every kind of area fits really well with the music, and the intensity as well, where you are. Like if a game had really mediocre music, very bland, or it's very samey, that that's really going to sort of turn me off, I think. So say metaphor with Fantasio, which I played last year. The soundtrack is, I like the uniqueness and the difference of trying to, have its own identity. But some of the tracks there's only maybe 2 or 3 that I quite like, but otherwise, overall, it's quite bland, generic, and I was quite surprised. I think they tried to stray too far to make it a bit different, and it just didn't fit. It sounded really flat at times. Just didn't really instill this kind of like, just really cool epicness or intenseness. But also, like even in quiet moments or in the like towns or villages, like they sound okay, but they don't sound. They sound a bit like very, very. They kind of loop quite quickly and just not enough like nice melody going on or harmony going on. It just didn't work with me. But this game so far, like I've played 40 hours and no music, no tracks sound really bad. Like some sound a lot more amazing than others, but overall it's been really high quality. So I've got to give much praise to the composer for this game. So almost it's like as good as like say Nier or the Final Fantasy games, of course. So even for Persona games, music really helps me to kind of keep going as well. Especially when you're doing a certain, let's say you're doing a certain fight over and over that you need to get through. It's to keep you going, especially when you're failing, but you want it to keep going because music sounds good. And hopefully that helps kind of like give you more an edge. And then you get into kind of like this rhythm and flow. One thing I also forgot to mention as well, just looking at the characters in the menus, that their outfits, the textures look really cool. Like really, really high detail as well. Not just in the outfits, but like everywhere, like rocks, the characters or like buildings, etc. But especially the character design, they look really cool. Like the leather looks like really nice leather and like almost realistic. So later on you find journals. There's a lot of them, and this kind of adds more to the world. And each kind of expeditions from different characters' point of view. So that's nice to see what's happened to them, how they end up this situation, and this is where their last ended up. Okay, we're in this new section now where we're in this like very blue, enchanting looking forest. So again, I like to see how the game just mixes things up. That mixes things up just to kind of give them more variance and interest. So that's why I feel like it's a very nicely paced game. Hardly any fillers. Like a lot of the stuff is very focused on. It's linear, but like open space, like very widely open space linear. You can tell as you're watching this video, like where to go or where you should be going, but you have like a nice big environment to explore. But I like how it just transitions from different areas to different area, and it's quite unique. And of course, the music is tied to that specific area where it sounds a bit more like haunting for like a nice blue forest. So it kind of fits the theme very well. Okay, so eventually get to this massive tree. Another expeditioner who unfortunately gets killed off very quickly. So again, just to remind you that the stakes are high, and no one is safe. So whilst fighting this boss, I thought like it sounds like a human, but every time I hit this Eveke, I think it's how you pronounce it, this boss, it's like wailing, almost like a human. It's been like transformed into this weird, dark abomination of a creature. So I don't know. Guess we'll find out later on when I actually finish the game. But it's just a thought that I remembered when I was battling this boss. Music there is music very, very just hits hard. We got this like core voice going on. A lot of the soundtrack music has a lot of like it's kind of a choir angelic voice and stuff. And but later on, I found that the music varies a lot in terms of like the different. Like I like the composer to try different genres. Like you have like more classical pieces like this with pianos and violins and stuff, and the choir kind of voice. But also you might have like say hard rock or guitar or electro beats. It's all fun and very varied, but it fits with what you're battling at the time and what you're doing at the time. But also I think it's just nice to not keep things too samey and hopefully not too boring as well. So, but in a weird way, it just kind of fits. Like it just doesn't feel like it's out of place because the world is very, it's very strange, very kind of foreign and uncharted and mysterious. So anything can happen, and hence the music can be whatever the composer wants you to hear. Like it's very expressive. This game is about just being creative and just giving you all it's got, really. That's kind of what the devs want you to feel, especially in terms of the visuals, the characters that you meet along the way, the enemies you fight, the story, the music, just everything is like, just go out, be creative, be expressive. So we end with a nice finisher. It's kind of cinematic. It's a finishing move from Lune Gustav. Very cool. So after defeating the boss, we progress to the section where we find this sign. It's always a message on a wall, and Lune is reading it out, and it's about finding Mael, who seems to be missing, but she's inside this hut. But I actually like this section as well because it's nice because Lune seems a bit skeptical, but then Gustav obviously he wants to find Mael because obviously he just discovered that she could be alive. So if there's a chance that she's alive, then he has to go and find her. He's focused on that. Whilst Lune is kind of like, she's not against it, but she wants to kind of regroup because she knows that they're quite tired and maybe they need to rest first. So she likes to follow the rules and follow. I guess she might have like some sort of like, I don't know, OCD or ADHD or something like that, where she has to follow things to a T. I don't know, or maybe she's just she's trying to think more rational, whilst Gustav is obviously following his heart, and he also thinks about other people, and he wants to find out who's alive before it might be too late. So I like this kind of dynamic, but Lune eventually, she has to listen because Gustav wants to, go off and find her first. So she knows they have to stick together to have more of a chance to survive. So yeah, it's a nice kind of. It's not like they're not arguing each other. It does feel natural and definitely something that it could happen in a real life situation, right? Again, it's not really rocket science, you might think, but I don't see a lot of games to kind of do this, where the dialogue between characters, especially when you have little breaks like this, it just kind of like naturally forms. But also it doesn't feel. Sometimes a lot of games, they just give you a lot of fluff and just a lot of waffle with the conversations, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. So you want to, get to the point, and it just takes like 5 or 10 more minutes than it should, basically. Whilst this, it's just like, let's just get going. It's the goal. We need to get there. How are we going to do it? And it just gives a bit more personality to characters without overstaying its welcome. Okay, so we finally make it to the overworld for the first time, and this is, I kind of knew about it, but I've never seen it in person, and it just really reminds me of, first of all, it reminds me of like Final Fantasy IX, with the kind of like mysticalness and I don't know, just kind of the diorama like characters and maybe the music as well. Just the way things look as well. It looks kind of like FF9. But also it reminds me of a game called Fantasian, which is another RPG. And this was released on the iPad or Apple Arcade a few years ago. Then was released this year, I believe, for the Switch. Might be for other platforms as well. But that is made from Hironobu Sakaguchi, where literally that is like more diorama-esque, where they use they basically photographed the environments, where basically they created like 3D sculptures like in real life. Let's say they use foam to create like a piece of building or rock or like a environment, and then they photograph like the whole the model pieces that made, and then integrated that into the game, and then the character's like a 3D character where you can move around these 3D environments which are actually made in real life. So that gives it a very unique kind of a look. And that game was kind of cool. Bit short, but fairly decent. I think about 20 hours if I remember. Yeah, the overworld kind of reminds me of that part actually. But anyway, yeah, it's quite refreshing to see an overworld like this, and it's been a while since I've kind of had this experience. I mean, Metaphor didn't really have an overworld as such, or it actually doesn't really. Just had like a towns and cities and villages where you can teleport in between from a like a flat map that you can fast travel in between. But there's no like overworld where you can explore. So even though Clair Obscur is not an open world game as such where you can go anywhere, it has a very open space with this overworld. And there's a lot. It's actually a lot bigger than you might think. So even Act 2, there's some places I've been to, but there's a lot that I haven't discovered yet, and I can't access yet because there's a lot of high level areas which when you go to a high level area, it's going to say like danger, and normally it's like a red portal. So that's definitely not the place that you need to go to yet. You can try, but I tried once and then quickly found out that was definitely not the optimal path, because I was not going to survive for very long. So unless you're like a parry expert, and you've got a lot of patience, like infinite patience, then maybe you will enjoy the challenge, but otherwise it's just not worth your time, in my opinion. But just really gushing about the overworld is so cool, and it's nice to have it here, and to have, even though there's not like loads of little caves and stuff you can go to, that I think that there's enough to do. To be fair, there's enough. A lot of different areas that you can find, different treasures and really cool things, or mini optional bosses, or maybe even super bosses. So it's really nice to have that. This is what I mean, where a lot of RPGs don't have this, and it just really gives a bit more charm and really honest, the kind of classic RPGs or JRPGs that I remember. I'm sure you guys will remember. So great stuff, devs. Well done. Big praise. So hopefully next Final Fantasy game they will have something like this, and you can see a lot of like landmarks at distance or other areas to go to, and you just think, I want to go there. I want to check out, and hopefully I'll be able to go to that place later on. Get to a point where Lune decides to say, okay, let's set up camp now. I think it's a good time because we're also getting tired, and that's cool. So this obviously introduces the first time we use the campsite, which we'll come to quite a few times, and it's good to come here for a bit of reprieve, but also to bond with your characters. And it's nice to have this actually, and definitely very JRPG like experience, and just kind of rest up, just find out more about the different characters, increase your stats eventually, and yeah, just really enjoy the moment. Also, it's cool that I added this like music player. It's like a very kind of old-timey classical music player. It's very cool. I like this. So there's a way you can play different tracks. You can collect vinyls throughout your game. Okay, so I said this video will probably take an hour or just so, but it's taken a little bit longer than I've expected. So what I'm thinking is maybe I'll split, videos like Act 1 into various videos, Act 2 into various videos. But I'll see how it goes. But I guess if you guys enjoy this sort of thing, then yeah, it'd be appreciated if you support me. Just give me a like and comments, because I want to try and do like a series of these videos, and just to give you my thoughts going through this game, because this game definitely deserves a lot of praise, especially if you're into it. If you're not, then that's it's totally fine. But I definitely want to try and give a lot of support to this game, and I'm playing this on Game Pass, by the way, so I didn't actually tell you guys. So if you're still on the fence about it, then you can get it on Game Pass. So I think it's like $9.99 for Game Pass for like a month. So it's a pretty good deal, and you should be able to finish this game within that time anyway. But even if you don't and you decide you want to buy it, which I most definitely probably will actually, once I've finished this first playthrough, and because I want to do like a second playthrough and get all the secrets and stuff. But also I do want to support the devs as well, because I feel like this game, it definitely needs, or it definitely could do with a sequel, which I don't know if that's going to happen anyway, because I'm not gone to the end part yet. But anyway, I want to try and give more time to my experience and with these videos, that is, and just to kind of dive a bit more into the details of each one. But yeah, I think this format I'll try to keep. So maybe I will try to condense down the next videos in the future, just to tie it all up eventually, and not to have a really long video playlist as such. So I may sort of glaze over other bits later on, especially if it comes into even though there's gonna be a lot of spoilers and stuff, I will try to just brush over them and just try and highlight the bits that I really like the most, just to kind of talk about. But yeah, if you guys like this sort of thing, then please do support me by liking, commenting, and subscribing if you want to, and that would be much appreciated. So thanks for your time, and I'll see you hopefully on the next one. Take care.